listening to episode 102 of Mitolife Radio. Today, I'm speaking with Victor Mifsud, also known as the Blind Biohacker. This was one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. I had a lot of fun with Victor, talking about all sorts of things. We went really deep into eye health, and he shared his wisdom and his experience with healing his eyes. He's a fellow biohacker, so he likes to try all sorts of stuff. And I know there's, stuff associated with that word, biohacker, but I feel like there are people that are doing it more right than others versus just buying every conceivable device and not really having a strategy of using them for a purpose, just kind of using everything. I'm all for stacking, but it definitely has to be done intelligently, or I feel like it can do damage. Well, I know that it can do damage because you look at some of these nootropic formulas that have the whole kitchen sink in it, 40, 50, 60 ingredients, and you have to take maybe 9 pills. And you have vitamin D, which is storage form steroid hormone D that's used in rat poison. There's vitamin A in there, which can increase pathogenic infections in the gut. And you have niacin, likely that form of B3, which increases histamine, prostaglandins, and serotonin. So it's a very stressful form of vitamin B3. I prefer niacinamide that I sell through Mitolife. But I'm just making the point that if you take everything, for example, you're taking omega-3s and vitamin E, you just canceled out the vitamin E. So the vitamin E didn't even do anything. It wasn't able to, inhibit damage from free fatty acids and inhibit lipolysis and decrease free fatty acids in the blood, increasing glucose uptake. It's not able to do that if you're on an omega-3 supplement like a fish oil every day. So just some things to think about there. We actually did talk about niacinamide at some point in the interview because I've found some really great studies about how niacinamide neutralizes inflammation, specifically in the eye, which makes sense because it has that relationship with the unsaturated fats. So we talk about attention deficit disorder. We talk a lot about the unconscious mind and quite a bit about trauma. Victor's been looking into that for years, and I feel like that's a subject that I would like to learn more about because I feel like every person has it, and therefore we try to cope through multiple different means, and it's just coping. We're not getting to the root of the issue. It's like taking a pharmaceutical drug versus getting to the root with a deficiency or a toxicity. And I know people can get lost in trauma. I think there's a right way to go about it. You definitely can't stress about it. You definitely can't just get lost in it, just like nutrition and health, because you'll lose yourself in the process, and that's not healthy. So we're just going to jump in. I'll let Victor speak for himself here and enjoy the interview. All right, Victor Mifsud, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited. How long have we been friends? Like 5, 6, 7 years? Quite a while, right?
I think so. I can't remember when I first started following you, but it's probably been about 4 to 5 years. It has. I'm sure we can probably scroll up and see when we started talking over Instagram. But yeah, it's been a long time. So it's nice to actually sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think I got into biohacking when I was still living with my parents years ago, and then I went into the ancestral stuff and hunting and foraging a little bit and rewilding. I've just been kind of trying all sorts of different things, and looks like you've been doing some of that a little bit, right?
Yep. Yeah, you have to. And it's just a part of the human process to learn, to try different things. Some things work, some things don't. And, we all make mistakes, and that's how we learn from experimenting. And that's, what you do best. And that's what I've been doing for a while, just to try and get to this level of self-understanding and self-acceptance. So, yeah, I've been doing that for a while too. Past 10 years, I think I've been getting into biohacking, even before it was called biohacking.
Yeah, before we started recording, you mentioned a breakup, and I've been through this as well. And it's just, it could be such a beautiful thing, right? That transforms you and kind of catapults you forward. And that was kind of one of your catalysts, right?
That was a big catalyst for me back in 2011. Before I, whatever, woke up, and the dynamic of interacting with my, at the time, girlfriend, didn't understand why things were butting heads in a certain way, and I really didn't see these patterns that I was expressing, and just interacting things that I didn't say and should have said, and it wasn't a perfect relationship anyway in many things, but at the time it meant a lot to me. And my old self wanted to say, like, why are these similar patterns keep happening with certain relationships? And I gained a better understanding on how I was, through, again, finding out about various especially unconscious aspects of myself. And I think that's the big important part. I often quote that Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. So, you know, and the unconscious self runs about 95% of the show. And we're living in this 5% conscious world, and we don't see that side of us. It's hard to see. So, you know, vision is the art of making the, the invisible, or seeing the invisible. So, but at the time when that happened, these two books kind of came into my life. And one of them was Dr. Norman Deutsch's The Brain That Changes Itself, which talks all about neuroplasticity, and stories of how neuroplasticity changed people's lives. And there was a story about this woman called Barbara Arrowsmith, who had severe learning difficulties and ended up basically fixing her own brain by creating these neuroplastic exercises. And she figured out how to overcome these learning challenges she had. She ended up starting a school, and I immediately said, hey, wow, that really sounds like me. Always had difficulty in school, thought I was stupid. And it not only affects the whole way you learn, but it affects the way you communicate with people, because you can misunderstand things that people say, and it affects how you react to it. And it just and that is what I think was going on in my relationship. I think my learning disabilities or dysfunctions, whatever you want to call them, were affecting how I was involved in my relationship. It wasn't my fault, but it's just the way my brain was working, or not working. So I immediately fell into that story, and thought, wow, this sounds so much like me. And I was researching a lot about attention deficit disorder, and then there was this book that I found, written by Dr. Gabor Mate, called Scattered Minds. I think it's called Scattered in the States. It's a different title up here in Canada. And that was his kind of autobiography about what he thinks the true origins of attention deficit disorder are. And he links a lot of stuff to childhood trauma and even ancestral trauma. So that was a big game changer for me. Like I said, that was still 10 years ago. And then at the same time, there was a documentary that he put out that it was called The Jungle Prescription, where he ends up talking about treating people with severe depression with ayahuasca, that ancient Peruvian medicine. And I had been suffering from depression my whole life, because I had a pretty traumatic childhood. I had an abusive parent, and I've been on the whole rigmarole of antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, therapist after therapist, and nothing worked. And I thought, like, it's either sink or swim at this point, because I was in such a messy situation where I was not doing well from the breakup and from this accumulation of just life's unresolved traumas, that I was so desperate that I was willing to try anything. And I really respected Dr. Gabor Mate, because just the way he spoke about it, I'm like, wow, this guy's a very intelligent man talking about the the depths of what it might take to reduce or to acknowledge unconscious trauma. So that kind of got me involved into the whole world of the power of psychedelic medicines. So that's kind of how I ended up here, 10 years later. So that's a bit of how I got started.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we could kind of unravel that throughout the interview too.
Okay.
Um, did you ever get into lucid dreaming? Because I started a dream journal when I was 12, and it's my understanding that psychedelics allow people to essentially dream while they're awake, right? And so lucid dreaming, like I've had some, I could think of just two lucid dreams that made me cry that day after I had the dream, because they were so uh, they really shook me to my core in a good way. Like I feel like I actually went in and altered a file in my brain that, you know, had to change or something like that. I don't know how to articulate that.
Yeah, essentially that's what ends up happening. These medicines can be like a induced dream, to help us process unconscious material. Because it's a certain type of intelligence. In the same way that we're waking now, and then when we go to bed later, we have no idea what dream we're going to have. And it's the same thing with some of these psychedelic experiences that I've had. Like, I have no idea what comes up, and there's certain things that do come up that it seems like they just know what's bothering me or what's blocking uh, the way, and it allows you to feel them on such a primordial level, and have these somatic releases. There's been times where I've cried quite a bit, and cried either tears of pain in a good way, or the opposite, where I've had these tears of joy. And I don't really, I haven't really gotten that in my day-to-day life, and it's definitely possible through our sleep and through our dreams. But as our sleep is under attack by the crappy environment, light toxicity, EMF. So how many people aren't sleeping properly? It's tons of people aren't sleeping properly, so it's affecting our dream world. And and what you said, if you can do that lucid dream properly, then for sure I think you can do a lot of amazing work. And psychedelics aren't necessarily the answer per se. There's other ways to do it, but our society right now is in a bit of a crisis, and I think we need, like, all the help that we can get. And if done responsibly, I think that's the big caveat, is the need to be done responsible, because these are very powerful medicines, and not to be taken lightly, or just fancy free.
At
So
a music festival.
right, which, if you want to do that recreationally, you just know what you're playing with, but you run a high risk of potentially doing more damage than good.
Yeah, and
So
interacting with not so or people with not good intentions. And I guess my main beef with it is that I think there's a huge nutritional component, and like I
of
talk a lot
course.
about like iron overload and even deficiencies in like retinol and copper and magnesium, these basic things. And I think people should like fortify that before they consider going that direction.
I agree. I agree. And it's definitely a balance, because I've been involved in both worlds, the quote unquote spiritual community, and I was involved in the biohacking community, and I just saw these two things where where people were only just going in and like, oh, I got to do inner work and I need to like find a guru or read all this stuff, and concentrating on my trauma, which is great. But then they were completely forgetting the fact that we're in these bodies and it needs you know minerals, vitamins, and proper food. So and then you find the opposite where that's all people concentrate on and forget about their inner world. So it's a balance of this inner world and outer world maintenance. And yeah, nutrition is a big part of it, because you can do all the spiritual work you want to do, but if if your body is run down, or if it's full of shit, then it's not going to perform. So it's really about this balance.
I love it. Okay, it's made a note. Explicit podcast now.
Sorry.
No, that's good. um, Earlier you said in school you thought you were stupid, and I can relate because I think I got a D in math class, and I didn't learn fractions till after high school. I mean, I was just horrible at math, and I just couldn't. My brain could not get it with mathematics. But what's funny is when I started focusing on health, I could get it after I was out of there and actually teaching kids. But I was nearsighted, and I remember trying to see the board, straining my eyes, and it felt like it hurt my brain. And so it's really interesting to talk to you to kind of connect these dots, because after I got LASIK eye surgery, now my eyes are perfect. I mean, I know there's mixed thoughts on that,
Mm-hmm.
but like it ruins the clock and it fixes the camera or something. But I feel like my brain function went through the roof after I got LASIK. I don't know. It's interesting.
That's great. Great. I haven't had LASIK. I mean, I I wouldn't be allowed to get it anyway, just because of my retinitis pigmentosa vision condition. So I actually at 32 had cataracts and had both lenses replaced. So I actually have my my distance vision was corrected with these lens implants. So I wasn't keen on doing it, but my cataracts were getting worse. I tried to reduce them naturally, and at the time I couldn't, and I just couldn't see anything because I had these two clouds in front of my eyes, and I probably would have approached it differently now if I had more time in that sense. But what's done is done, and I've kind of moved on from that. But I've been doing a lot of other things to help my eyesight, and some really interesting things about the eyes and their ability to heal. So, which is a lot of my focus with the eyes and the brain, because technically the eyes are a part of the brain. We see with the brains, not with the eyes, too. So that's probably why you um, were able to absorb and understand more information. So
What is retinitis pigmentosa? Is that the clouds that you were mentioning? Or
no, the retinitis pigmentosa is I was told that it's a genetic condition. So there's a lot of different variants from a genetic perspective. So it does run in my family. So so there is a genetic perspective, and basically what that means for me in terms of what I see and what I was diagnosed with this at 9 years old. So I've had it for that long, and it's basically severe tunnel vision and night blindness. So I actually have my central vision. So what I see in front of me, I see in perfect clarity and color, but it's like looking at everything through a tunnel. And at night, so it's actually based on available light. So at night, that tunnel drastically shrinks. So I end up becoming night blind. So the majority of my blindness is quite obvious at night. But during the day, I've adapted pretty well looking through this tunnel. So if I move my eyes up and down, left and right, it's like a spotlight that kind of fills in the world. So I've pretty much have been seeing like that since I was 9, and there's nothing that can be done about it, or what I've told in Western medicine, um, and I've been on a quest to find out how to reverse it. And I've learned some pretty interesting things, and have actually, with the things that I have been doing now, the right eye has been showing some improvement, which is pretty much unheard of for retinitis pigmentosa. So something there, the things that I'm doing seem to be working, and I'm doing quite a bit of things. So I'm not 100% sure on exactly what it is, but we're biohackers and we have to do what it takes to get to where we want to. But I mean, I have an idea on what's working, but I think it's a few things that are really kind of creating this Goldilocks environment for things to change.
Yeah, I loved your documentary, My Neuroplastic Adventure, and that was awesome. And there was the part where you described that little, what it's like, what you're seeing with
Hmm.
that little lens. And I'll put a link below to that. It's on Vimeo, right? I think. Or
It's on iTunes, and somebody told me that it's actually on Prime, which I had no idea. But it's on iTunes, and I think it's like $1.99 to watch, and it's on Prime as well. It's also available in Canada on the AMI website, the TV version. But if they want to watch the full feature, it's much different, and there's a couple of different scenes that aren't on the TV version, so it's available there too.
it kind of felt like a meditation. Like I was relaxed watching it. That's pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, it's I don't want to stress too many people out. It's just my story. It's a very personal film, and I talk a lot about kind of what I went through in life to kind of get here, and dealing with this vision loss issue, which for most of my life I was afraid to tell anybody that I even had this, because the nature of the condition, I was able to like fake it in the sense where to act like nothing was wrong, but that caused a huge stress on myself, and pretending I basically was something that I wasn't. And through like this radical self-acceptance, I just kind of went the other way, and came out and said I have this, and this is what I'm dealing with, and talked about my journey on the things that I've done to biohack my body, mind, and soul kind of thing. And I outlined all the things that I've done, and I've did up to date in the film. And and it felt pretty good to kind of just be open and say this is me and this is what I've done. So yeah.
I love it. And I'm just curious. I hope this isn't too personal. Like,
No. I've heard it all before, and nothing's too personal for me, so it's all right.
I love
Shoot.
it. Well, so one of my mentors is Morley Robbins. I've had him on the show multiple times, and he's like the magnesium, iron, copper guy. He basically says, there's 84 plus minerals, but there's only three that matter, and it's magnesium, copper, and iron, because they really run the show in the body for better or worse. And he also talks quite a bit about retinol, and I know there's a strong connection, and I'm sure you've looked into it, like retinoic acid and vitamin A supporting the eyes. But I've talked with him a lot about, you know, um, prenatal health and our mom's health. And I know, like, my mom was pescatarian, for example, and so
Hmm.
that's going to affect the download. The first child gets 10% of mom's minerals, the second child gets 9%. But if the vitamins or minerals are not in mom, then the kid's not going to get them, and then they're going to have certain things going on. I just wondered if you'd ever looked into that or thought about, like, yeah.
I, I wasn't breastfed,
Mm,
so I'm not sure how problematic that was for me. Uh, I I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm the second oldest,
mm.
so I got I was second in line. I Yeah, so I'm not sure what I missed out on things, but I know I was kind of like a sickly child. I always had stomach issues. I had tubes put in my ears. I always had ear infections, and on top of that, like at 9, I remember explaining to my mom at around 7 or 8 that I couldn't see anything at night, and I don't know how these kids were playing around at night. So something was obviously uh, not not in check. And to sort of tie into, I think when I was 18 or 19, I ended up going on Accutane, which drastically affected my vision. I think it accelerated my vision loss, and it actually started. I started to lose some of my hair in certain patches. I'm hereditary. I'm not hereditarily supposed to go bald, and I didn't. As soon as I stopped taking the Accutane, my hair stopped falling out, but it just fell out in a certain kind of patches. So, and I'm not sure what Accutane is, but I was told that it's like an accelerated type of vitamin A, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah, it's my understanding it depletes copper pretty severely, and then you can't use all your oxidase enzymes. So like
mhm, mhm.
it pretty much decreases your ability to use oxygen, which is foundationally will mess you up.
Right. And I mean, I wasn't that healthy. I wasn't, I was just eating crap anyway back then, and like a lot of us were. So I'm sure that didn't help things. And if I could obviously turn back time, I'd do things much differently. But what's done is done, and now just in the process of reversing a lot of the damage done. So, but there's still a lot of aspects where I need to look into things, and I'm taking, I take quite a bit of vitamin E, and
Oh,
um, I have a few other things that I do for the eyes as well. Um, but yeah, the eyes are pretty interesting, and not a lot of people talk about them. And it's how we interact with the world, and a lot more care needs to happen because we're under such bombardment from technology and our indoor life existence that we're going to see like an accelerated issue of eye problems. So that's kind of why I'm also trying to teach people how to take care of the eyes. I'm actually working on a like a vision summit where I've spoken to a lot of key players in the holistic vision care realm. When it comes to color light therapy, peptides, trauma, uh, psychedelics, circadian rhythm, all that stuff. So I think it's and the Bates method and a few other things on, you know, like how come if the body's intelligent that when we break our arm it heals, but anything to do with the eyes, it just seems like, oh, sorry, you're screwed. Your eyes are just fucked. So that doesn't make sense to me. So I think the eyes are obviously a little more complicated and might need certain types of ways to protect them and to heal them. And I've been learning a lot of really interesting things. And I've actually, when I did wear glasses before my cataracts, I was able to reduce the prescription that I did have by over 33%.
wow,
So it's definitely possible.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think when we started talking, I was really heavily into like the cruise, like sungazing, seafood, omega 3 thing. And
Hmm.
I've kind of evolved since then. And I think I'm getting somewhere good because there's this disease called Stargardt's disease. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
Yeah,
it's
sure.
a lipofuscin disease, essentially. It won't say that when you read about it, but it totally is because just blocking UV light uh, prevents the progression of that disease.
Hmm.
And lipofuscin, this glycated mess of polyunsaturated fats and proteins like aluminum and iron, that it actually responds to UV and blue light. So,
Hmm.
not to say wear sunglasses outside and avoid UV, but I think there's something to be said about, kind of focusing more on red light therapy, probably not sun gazing, probably not taking omega 3s because it's with the RPE thing. I got heavy into Dr. Bazan's study that Cruz always cites with omega 3s increasing your electricity in your eye and healing them, and
Hmm.
short loop
Hmm.
and the long loop. I'm sure you've looked into all that stuff. But
Yeah, yeah. I have, and I'm like I said, I'm still learning a lot about that too. And I uh, I I think there's probably some tie-in as well between uh, the accumulation of that with my situation as well. Because I know I've heard from you and from others about B3, the niacinamide as well, showing great power to help out the eyes. I know Carl Lenore on Superhuman Radio had a guest again who was talking all about uh, niacinamide and the power of it, and I've just ordered some more.
Cheap.
Which
That's why I love it.
What's that? Oh yeah, it's super cheap. Yeah, yeah. So it's a no-brainer for me. And I was never really exposed to a lot of omega threes growing up, and when I was like a lot of the early literature when I was studying about retinitis pigmentosa, what can help, they were mentioning that uh, omega threes were beneficial, but I don't know. I don't supplement with omega threes right now. I don't eat a lot of fish personally right now. I'm pretty much eating, you know, beef and just some complex carbs like potatoes and certain things like that. So I radically switched my diet probably about 3 or 4 years ago to that. Um, and what else was I going to say with what I was doing? Yeah, I don't know where I was going to go with that one, but yeah, that's kind of where what I've been doing um, as well. So there's some interesting things, and curious to see where it's going to go. And but yeah, it's been such an adventure to figure out how to heal. And there's certain conditions that block certain things and certain. Sorry, my phone's buzzing. Um, so yeah, I'm still learning a lot, and I still believe that I can actually continue to heal my eyes. And from what I am doing, something seems to be working, you know, and it's been a huge adventure to try and get to here, with especially being diagnosed with that really really early on, and saying that, hey, there's nothing you can do about it, so don't bother. Which in many ways is pretty uh, criminal that a doctor can take away your power and say that to you. Which, for a while I believed them, and just kind of gave up on life. And I just, through learning about the body's intelligence, you just empower yourself and say, you know what, screw this. So
I love it. Are you doing neurofeedback pretty consistently? Because I think in the documentary you had sensors hooked to your head, right?
I am going to look into neurofeedback further. That scene was at the Brain Behavior Laboratory when I went to Vancouver to talk with Dr. Lara Boyd, and I got my brain scanned. And but I've heard a lot about the power of neurofeedback for ADD symptoms and things like that. So it's something that I would like to kind of get back into. But I was and have done that in the past, and actually found it very beneficial, because a lot of people don't realize that some ADD uh, symptoms are because of this, I don't know, like this noise in the brain where something is not like leveled out. And you end up being like scattered or just jumping from here to there, because there's this lack of calm going on inside the brain. And I think the neurofeedback can really help balance things out. So as opposed to going on, stimulant meds, which probably do more harm than good.
Or Adderall?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I used to be on that for over 3 years, like
Wow.
over 10 years ago, and it was a mess. So
Yeah, I like Valdine Brown created something called Neurooptimal, and it's like a home thing, but you could find practitioners. And I've done like over 50 sessions at home on it, and I definitely feel it. I guess in a simple way, it's showing your brain where it's wasting energy. So you listen
mhm.
to music for a half hour, and then when the music skips, that is the feedback to your central nervous system, to redirect wherever it wants to go.
Yeah, it's like actually looking at your brain in a quote unquote mirror to see where it's messing up.
Mm.
So I mean, that's the feedback, the brain feedback that And I'm interested. I know it gets kind of expensive, and some places you have to go to a center and do it there properly. And there's somebody in Toronto that Dr. Deutsch recommended that I work with, and I'll probably end up looking into that, because a lot of people are very smart, and but why ever they have these ADD symptoms, and then they lose their intelligence because they just can't get it done. And ADD is just out of control these days. There's so many people that I hear are, oh, I'm ADD and I have trouble focusing. And I mean, it's understandable in so many ways, just because, our phones are dinging left, right, and center. And, uh, there's just way too many things to focus on. And, a lot of people have unresolved trauma, which can create that. Unresolved trauma, there ends up being this avoidance of the self. And if you have a difficult time just being with the self, you want to distract yourself, so you just distract yourself with this or that, and then there's the whole dopamine hits and all that stuff. So it's no wonder why it's running rampant. And I'm sure there's other elements like heavy metals and just the toxicity of the brain and all that stuff too. So there's so many. We're just pretty under assault. So
Yeah, it's crazy when you just look at like an iPhone, like everything about it, like the EMFs, the blue light, the notifications. It I just tell people to take frequent breaks, especially if you work from your phone or you're building a business or whatever. It's like you have to use it, but just not every minute of the day, right?
yeah, but then we're like, oh, I need it because I'm at work, and then half the time you're scrolling on Instagram, looking at stupid posts anyway. And so it's just like, and it's very addictive. You have to understand that it's so very addictive. There's times where you put the phone down and you're like, okay, I'm done. I just put it down. And then you're like doing something else, like, oh, let me just check this. And you just like all of a sudden your arm just reached for your phone, like, what is going on? So there's a real heightened awareness that you have to, people put them in these safe boxes when they're working, and there's all these tricks people use, but just know that it is like crack, and you have to be really careful with it and limit yourself.
Isn't it
But
like pornography? Because I noticed a lot of people. I mean, I'm not a fan of pornography. I haven't watched it in many years, and unfortunately, you know, that's just a trap for I think men. And maybe it's safer some sense with sleeping around with a bunch of people, but it definitely harms the brain via the dopamine
mhm.
pathways, right? But isn't social media equivalent? Like scrolling Instagram feeds and stuff, it's pretty much the same damage done.
Yeah, it's designed for that. I mean, just the nature of the way these apps work, they emulate the pull chain of those gambling slot machines, and getting the dopamine hit mixed in with the blue light and these dings, like, oh, a message for me. It's going to be something good. So it really feeds the dopamine. I'm sure there's a bit different centers, probably heightened sensors when you're looking at pornography, in the sense where it becomes a lot more addictive in that way too. But yeah, it's very problematic.
Hmm. So with trauma, um, Gabor Monte is a person that you've learned a lot from, right? With that subject, and I've been trying to find like what's a good introduction to his work. Like, how did you get into his stuff? Or
The first book that I read from his was called Scattered Minds, or like I said, Scattered, and it's about the true origins of attention deficit disorder. And he basically explains how it stems from childhood trauma. Uh, he has all of his books on audio, and so you don't have to read the books. I function better when I listen to things as well, but sometimes I like having the hard copy book. 'Cause, if I really get into it, I actually read the book and listen to the book at the exact same time, so I really kind of get it
wow,
absorbed. But it's nice to multitask and have it on. Actually, there is a new documentary coming out about his life and work as well. So I think it's something to look out for. But a couple of his books, there's one called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, which is about addiction, and When the Body Says No is another great book. So any of those three books I would suggest in terms of getting into the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, and he's been on quite a few podcasts, and he just has this way of really understanding the bigger picture on where the root stems from, and he can, within people kind of call him the trauma whisperer. So he has an ability to kind of like talk to you for a moment and really pinpoint and ask the right questions to see what's been blocking you, and where you're like tripping over yourself, so to speak, when it comes to your trauma. So he's no BS, and and heart as well to really kind of talk about these things. So he's really opened my eyes to a lot of aspects of trauma that I didn't see in myself, and allowed me to ask. He asked me the right questions to really help me get to the root of addressing a lot of my traumas. And
That's
it's hard
awesome.
work. It's hard work. It's not easy work, and but it's well worth it once you kind of go down that path.
Yeah, a guest on the show, Adam Bergstrom, he always says it's who's the matter with you, not what's the matter with you. And he uses reflexology. I think he holds the feet, and then he'll ask questions. And, what, depending on which foot moves, it means either male or female. And there's, I guess, a way to track down specifically who that is, uh, and if the person can release it. And a lot of the time, it's just cussing them out, according to him, that they release that and then they're fine and they move on. Their body can heal.
Well, trauma, however it was embedded in our body, ends up acting like this, excuse me, energy that hadn't had a chance to get released. So it can manifest in anything. Certain pains in the body, if it's been around long enough, it can manifest into autoimmune issues. And if we hold and a lot of vision issues are related to un unreleased trauma as well, because if you were traumatized, your body doesn't want to see the trauma, so it actually unconsciously blurs it out for you. So it's really powerful if you end up doing the work on how free you can feel, to get rid of all this, implicit programming that's stuck with the trauma. And a lot of us have trauma, and trauma can show different signatures. They call it a big T trauma, which is like you witnessed, somebody die in war, or a car accident. Or a little T trauma is like my my parents were always working. Like I was fine, but they just, like they weren't there. But the body still responds to the big T trauma and the little T trauma in the same way. So we're sensitive beings, and you know those little things can still, in fact, cause great harm if left uh, unresolved. So, and there's many ways to help resolve trauma, and like somatic therapy is really interesting. It's helped me quite a bit. Where it just finds, it's almost like a sort of like hypnotism, but not with the waving the watch in front of the eyes, but finding out, with a good practitioner, it finds out where that energy is stuck in the body, and then it allows you to talk about it. And kind of what you were saying about Adam Bergstrom is like you can relive that moment by pushing somebody who you needed to push back, or where you couldn't at the time. So when the body has a chance to actually do that maneuver, that energy and the trauma actually can get released. So, and then there's, the element of how psychedelic therapy can work too, because it really brings down that barrier between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind, which can be very tricky for a lot of people to do, because they're just uh, so traumatized, or they just can't look at what happened to them, because it's just like, PTSD, and like I can't talk about it. I don't want to they don't want to look at it. So
Wow. Well, you predicted one of the questions was how to work through old traumas. So you just answered that question. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to do. I like Ray Peat's article on serotonin. Is the, he talks about lysergic acid diethylamide lowering, acid lowering serotonin, and serotonin is a stress hormone that actually contributes to learned helplessness, that condition, and
mhm,
anxiety and depression and even aggression. And I guess by lowering that, you're actually basically a person can see reality for what it is instead of with those blocks. And so I guess that's one perspective from I guess a biochemical standpoint on how that
mhm,
one works.
mhm.
Yeah. But
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how they work and what they can do for severely traumatized people. And I've read a lot of data and a lot of research of people either in war or who've had some like highly abusive parents, when they weren't even conscious to think about it, when they were like babies. Of I've heard people in sessions like this parent had struggled this little baby, and for her whole life she had this throat thing where it always kind of like closed up and always felt like something was in her throat. Then after a session, she kind of remembered that what her father had done to her ages ago. And once she kind of like remembered that and realized this, had this somatic release, and her throat opened up and went back to normal. And there's so many stories that I've heard about the power. And it's pretty interesting. So yeah.
that's really cool. Yeah, I think I don't know. This might be controversial, but I think in a lot of situations, no matter how much prayer or meditation someone does, they actually need something more than that to push them through. I mean, because I've seen people just rely on those things alone and they do not heal. I've seen that time and time and time again.
Well, that's the thing. When you're praying, most of the time I still think you're in your conscious mind. You're not really getting to it's hard to get into your unconscious self. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna just go unconscious," and and if it works, it works. But a lot of the times it doesn't, because you need to go a bit deeper, and you know, yeah. So I definitely agree with that.
Have you tried? Someone asked about EFT, like emotional freedom technique. I think that's like the tapping, right?
There's a lot of neuroscience behind tapping. I've uh, I've experimented with it, and again, that works on the unconscious as well. I don't know how it works. There's some, like when I was told to do it, I'm like, what is this going to do? This sounds like, because I'm quite skeptical with certain things too. And I was like, oh, I do not want to do this. This sounds like a joke. And, but as a biohacker, I tried and experimented with it, and I'm not sure what it's done personally, but I've been told by quite a few people that it actually does work, and there's a lot of data behind it. And I did it, and I I felt better after doing it. So that's the thing with a lot of these traumas. Like once you kind of go through the work, you 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 almost forget what you were hung up about. So the trauma just disappears, and it's not like, oh my, you don't realize that your trauma is gone. Just you just act differently, and you're more present, and you're not overreactive to certain things or implicitly triggered by certain things. That's how it seems to work. It just kind of disappears, and you're like, you look back and like, wait, I'm not thinking about that thing that was bothering me anymore. So it almost has like this invisible uh, way that it works. And a lot of the times when you're doing different types of therapy, you don't your body can't really comprehend the extent of kind of what's going on in the background. Some weird stuff happens or some stuff comes to your mind, and then you know days afterwards, you just feel lighter, differently, and more, present. So you can just be in a state of flow or just doing. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how it works. So, but yeah, what other questions?
Well, I've heard that with physical ailments too. Like someone with a chronic condition, sometimes they don't even realize it goes away. A week later, they're like, "Oh wow, that physical problem is just gone. I didn't realize it."
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's pretty cool. That's really great.
This is a good one. Does cannabis consumption or any other psychedelic affect neuroplasticity? I think you were talking about MAPS before we started recording. That
Hmm.
right, the studies.
Yeah, MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. So the question is, does cannabis and other psychedelics create neuroplasticity?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the substance, what it's what it does to the brain, right? Like psilocybin works differently from LSD, which works differently from cannabis. Right? I mean, that's kind of my understanding.
Yes, I don't think I'm not sure if there's any data showing that cannabis creates neuroplasticity. Because the other thing is, don't forget, neuroplasticity can be a good thing or a bad thing. So you can have neuroplastic change where it's a detrimental and negative. But if you're talking about like the birth of new neurons, I know there was some studies that showed that psilocybin, the active ingredient in mushrooms, does, and I've heard that ayahuasca does as well. I'm not sure the data on like LSD or others, but those two I have heard. I don't know how much. We can create neuroplastic change within ourselves too by doing a lot of these cognitive exercises. For example, what I was doing at Aerosmith, that school, and if you exercise, you exercise your body, the muscles grow, and if you exercise your brain, the brain grows as well. So I think certain nutrients and medicines as well can cause that as well. But there is good neuroplasticity and there is bad neuroplasticity too. So something to be careful with.
That's a good point. Yeah, I worked at a cannabis dispensary and we sold a edible that was 1,000 milligrams,
Oh,
1,000 milligrams of THC, and my coworker ate the whole thing. I mean, this was a guy that was just high 24/7, and I don't think he was gonna create positive neuroplasticity, doing that and eating Popeye's chicken.
no way. No, it's like that's the thing. You take these substances and you can, since your brain is in this more open state, like what you said, you can eat crap food and watch a dumb movie, or you can take these substances, eat healthy, know what your body wants, and watch something where you can learn from, like a documentary or read a book. So it just kind of like opens your brain up into like taking a major left turn, or like a positive beneficial right turn. So you need to, you're creating this environment, and the things that you put in there, because you're a lot more highly suggestible as well. So it's important to feed your mind books and beneficial information as well. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Any nootropics you'd recommend besides tobacco?
Any Yeah, I've been working with methylene blue. I've been exploring uh, some peptides as well. There's some there. I've been working with this one called dihexa, and which I guess is a little more complicated in terms of where to get that from, but that's maybe another story. But there's some called Solank. It's an intranasal Solank, and there's Cmax, which are pretty interesting peptides. Uh, I've been experimenting with, yeah, the methylene blue. I mean, in the past, I've tried the racetams. I don't touch those anymore, and um, I don't know.
Do you ever use saffron?
No, no, no. I don't know much. I only know it's like a spice in terms of for like rice and things like that. I think I've heard a bit about it, but haven't ventured down that one yet.
Yeah, there's so many. I try to avoid just the nootropics where it's just like 40 ingredients. We all know those, and
Right,
I just
right.
feel like that's more chance for things to go wrong and the wrong forms of things.
Yeah, I I know there's another peptide too. It's carnosine as well. I actually have them in eye drops, and I'm taking them as a capsule peptide too. I've noticed some good benefit with them too. Um, but yeah, that's it. Nicotine I found very beneficial. I have a pretty good spray, and I have organic tobacco,
Nice.
which I like a lot. And the methylene blue, I've been using it. I have it in a nice liquid form as well. And there's another one as well, but I can't remember. Well, I like coffee. Coffee's good.
Coffee's,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Right on.
So,
This is a good one. My memory has deteriorated since using MDMA and cocaine in my past. How can I improve it?
well, I've never done cocaine before, but the brain is plastic and it can change. So uh, you have to, I mean, there's so many questions with that one. Like, what are you eating now? And what water are you drinking? And are you sweating it out what was in there? And I mean, there's so many and like how much did you use? I mean, MDMA, you know, and both of those substances, if not gotten properly, which most people can't get them properly, are highly uh, adulterated. So, if it was the simple, pure forms, which I'm guessing probably wasn't the case, who knows what else you were taking?
Coca leaf.
So that's a challenging one to But what I would say, like I said before, is the brain can heal. So just get the water right, get your see if you can detox and eat good food, support the brain, and the body can heal itself.
You're a big fan of the saunas, right? I think that's often overlooked. Just sweating in a dry sauna.
Yeah, yeah. I was really looking into again trying to find out what's been blocking me from healing, and I did a bunch of heavy metal testing, found out that I was high in lead and mercury, and managed to bring my mercury levels down. And I'm not sure where my lead levels are at, but last time I checked, they were still a little high. So I ended up investing in a dry infrared sauna, and was trying to I try to sweat out as much as I can. Again, also replacing minerals and things like that as well. It's a big part of it too. So yeah, I enjoy the sauna. I feel pretty good. I find like when I check my aura ring on the days that I do sauna, my REM sleep is much higher, and I just get a better sleep. Although I could exercise more. I mean, I do a lot of walking, and I could that's something I'm in the process of changing. But for the most part, the sauna has been a great detoxifier as well. You used the sauna quite a bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a barrel one on the way. I'm really excited about, like a wood fired one. 'Cause I feel like that's the ultimate way. I've never been in one, but that seems like the way to do it. And you can just power it with wood, which I have a ton of trees here in Idaho.
Oh, nice. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and it's just the heat from the wood and just like
It's yeah,
water.
it's like a mini almost stove in the sauna, but I think there's also you can pour water over if you want steam. So you
Okay.
kind of just fill the thing with wood. It shoots out the smoke shoots out the top, and then I think there's stones on it.
Yes.
Water.
Yeah, yeah, those are great. I've been to a couple of Russian banyas that have different types of saunas in there. That one infrared, that one with the rocks and the steam. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, while we're on this topic, I used to be pretty hardcore with the CT, the cold soaks, and I took a break for years just because I don't know. I feel like I don't need it as much, but I definitely noticed I got really high from it doing 55-degree Fahrenheit ice baths, noonday sun, naked. I'll keep my hands out and wear little neoprene booties. But
Hmm.
I have a question here about your thoughts in general on CT for the brain.
I don't like being cold. I mean, I live in Canada, and my family comes from Malta, which is not cold, and I don't know. It's one of those things where the only bit of cold thermogenesis that I do is when I'm in the sauna and my bedroom is cold, especially in the wintertime. I go out for 5-10 minutes and get cold just from the fluctuation of being in the room temperature. Uh, I mean, I've done CT before, but I I have a I don't know. I just don't like being cold, so I'm so opposed to it. So I just don't do it. I don't know if it's like a mental thing where I'm like, just tough it up and go in, but I just find it very uncomfortable, and so I don't go. So it's just, and I know there's people talk about the benefits from it, but if people have like thyroid issues or I don't think it's for everybody. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. It can be a stressor. I feel like it's more of a stressor than the sauna, just intuitively. I don't know. I
Yeah,
got
for me that makes sense because I mean, like I get pretty stressed out when I'm trying to like when I thought to do a cold shower. I'm like, screw this, I can't do this. It's too much. But if you can do it, I know people do it and have great benefits from it. I'm not there yet personally, so I it's not high on my list. I already live in Canada and it's already cold up here, so
this is a good one. Why is the center of every eye black?
I have not looked into that one. I don't know.
Black
Uh,
hole.
yeah, I don't know. That's an I never actually thought about that, but I don't know. I'll have to look that one up then.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I know black doesn't. I think black attracts light the strongest, from what I understand. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I mean, black does get hot when it's in the sun and light, so maybe there's something to it. But I'll have to look into that one. I don't know much about the anatomy of the eye,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's an interesting question.
Hmm. Someone asked, how bad are contacts for the eyes? I remember I got LASIK because I was, at the end of the day, my eyes would feel so dry from wearing contact lenses. And this is using drops every hour. It would still wreck my eye because it suffocates the retina, right?
I mean, put a plastic bag over your head. How's that feel? I used to wear contacts all the time because I hated glasses, and after a while, I read how bad contacts were for the eyes and just gave them up completely. So I don't wear them anymore. I mean, you could risk scratching the eye as well, um, and the eye needs some amount of light. So if you're wearing the lens on them, they're not going to get that exposure as well. And you know, some people can probably tolerate wearing contacts more than others, but I don't recommend it. But if you are interested in healing the eyes, it's most definitely possible to reduce your prescription. There's a great there's a couple of great books and methods on how to do this. One of the biggest books that changed my life is called "Take Off Your Glasses and See," which was actually written by Dr. Jacob Lieberman, who wrote "Light Medicine of the Future," and that talks a lot about the Bates method, and which the Bates method was, was around for about 100 years, basically explaining how to not need glasses. And it's a very interesting approach, and a lot of it's based on the subtle eye strain. And if you're wearing glasses, you need to slowly reduce the prescriptions, the eyes can actually revert back to where they were before, because the eye has all these complex muscles, and if you're having this eye strain, it ends up squishing the eye a bit, and when you squish the eye, you change the refraction, so the distance that you need to see things is so slightly altered that it changes your vision. But that muscle can essentially revert back. And there's a technique called palming, where you kind of lightly push the palms of your hands up into your eyes, and essentially you're holding your eyes, so the muscle has a chance to relax. And you can do this for 5-10 minutes if you have the time, and you can have some great benefit. But if you're looking to get off glasses, you need to either work with a type of behavioral optometrist to allow you to give you a proper prescription to let the eyes kind of move back, because if you keep putting that same prescription on, the eyes aren't going to change. The eyes are just going to stick to where they were before, because it acts like a crutch. So, so that is a big factor. If you want to heal your eyes from glasses, you need to coincide that with reducing the prescription.
Interesting. So the palming, because I used to do that, I thought it was kind of like the darkness and the heat from the hands, but from what you said, it's actually you're allowing your like the muscles around your eyes to relax when you put your palms up.
That's a big part of vision issues. Are the eyes are under strain, and it's such a subtle strain that it's not like you're like clenching your teeth or your fist to get that strain, but it's so subtle. But that subtleness has a drastic effect, and you once you kind of really get in tune to where this stress in your body is, even if it's so subtle, a lot of it is around the eye. And if you are aware of it and are reducing the stress with the palming technique, your eyes can begin to heal, because that increases blood flow and increases, because when you're stressed, there's less circulation going on too. So the blackness does help as well, and the heat are also beneficial factors too. So like it's like a 3-in-1.
That's cool. We had a couple questions about eye floaters, how to get rid of them, and also squiggles. Like I remember being, because I grew up on the beach in Southern California, and I remember especially when I was on the beach, lying down on the sand with my eyes shut, I would see these, squiggles all the time in my vision. Do you think those are just accumulations of a plaque-like material, or?
I used to get quite a bit of them, and I don't know what I did, but they're they're gone. So, but I used to get quite a bit of them, and I mean I've done a lot of certain things. And I know you posted something recently on floaters. Was that yesterday or today? So so I, again, since I didn't have that problem anymore, it's something that I didn't really look into. So yeah, again, it's something that I could look into as well. But I know you posted something about it recently as well. Um, so I don't know too much about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It seems like a lot of people are dealing with that. Like daily, I get messages, people with eye floaters. But yeah, I think it's like the lipid peroxidation products with the iron, and they accumulate in the retinal pigmented epithelial cells, so the
Hmm.
RPE cells, which are those are the studded mitochondria, and I believe those work with like melanopsin, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Receptors. Mm. Uh,
Yeah, I've been like I said, I've been looking into one of the big things that actually got me into peptides were a lot of these Russian studies from the 30s. They actually successfully treated my condition with these retinal peptides and a few other immune system peptides, and now some of these ones have been developed into eye drops. And there's this other product that the Russians made. It's called SKQ1, and it's like an eye mitochondrial booster. And I've been experimenting with that, and this other peptide called TB4 as well, that's been put into a drop, and that's part of this protocol that I've been doing to fix my uh, my seemingly unfixable vision condition, which is now, like I said, uh, beginning to change in the right direction. So, you know, but yeah, I don't have floaters anymore either. But there's some, yeah. So,
That's great. Yeah, and I think you're a big fan of red light
oh
therapy, right?
yes, yeah, we haven't even talked about red light. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because my
Uh,
neighbor had, I don't know if you've heard of like detached, I guess his retina
yeah.
was detaching, and I just got him on niacinamide, vitamin E, and I have so many freaking red lights here, that I just gave him one of mine. It's a small handheld near infrared, and it's my understanding that near infrared is better for the eyes than the visible, or at least there's more effect there.
Near infrared's good, and so is 670 nanometers, and I think that's just a type of red.
Mhm.
So it might depend on the condition, but I have one of Chris's lights, EMR, and I was actually Dr. Jacob Lieberman instructed me to hold the unit about 5 inches from my face for just 30 seconds a day, like that close, eyes closed, but obviously, the eyelids are so thin, it'll just go right through. So there's been a lot of really good data that showing that it actually helps my condition, retinitis pigmentosa. So, I mean, the red light and how it mimics copper, and so there's all these other factors, and again, boosting the mitochondria. So I'm kind of throwing a lot at my eyes right now, just, a lot of good stuff. So my eyes, I used to be so light sensitive. My eyes, I used to have a lot of bad eye days. I don't really have that much anymore. And like I said, my last appointment, I've actually shown some increase in the visual field. So that means something's going on with the cones or rods. So,
That's
yeah,
all. Yeah, someone asked about cure for light sensitivity. Kind of everything you've been talking about, right?
I used to be the sunglasses guy. I was always told to wear sunglasses, always, always, always. And I just, I, I stopped, and I don't need them. I mean, I'm up in Canada, and it doesn't get that sunny. There's times when I've been down to Mexico, and I'm there, when it's, you know 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and it's bright. My eyes are squinting, and it's bright, and it's a strong light, and I do wear them then. I mean, I really mitigate protecting my eyes, or even sometimes I just put on a light pair of blue blockers uh, during the day uh, down at the beach. But in order to fix the light sensitivity, you just don't want to jump into it. It's the same thing with using the sun. If you just go in it right away, you're going to get burnt. And knowing what time of day is beneficial to use it, but and also again supporting the eye and the brain with good foods to allow that. But I think most people can reduce their light sensitivity. Um, morning sun, I would say, is important. Morning sun is just 42% infrared, so it's probably one of the most beneficial frequencies. And you don't need to stare at it all day. Just get the quick fix, and kind of move on. Again, living here in the morning time, I just put on my red light in the morning, and just have that to like wake up the. Yep, that's it. To wake up the brain.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been experimenting with more full spectrum white light because I notice I don't know. I'm probably not. You're probably more at a northern latitude, but like today it was overcast from when I woke up all day, and so I'm really grateful to have these light devices, where I can give my body the right signal. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I have just to the right of me here, I have I'm experimenting with two like a black light fluorescent tubes, and I have my Spurdy, then I have my red light. That's kind of where I get my light vitamin D fix
I've seen
um,
that. Yeah, it's a good setup.
for the day, and then I have some full spectrum lights as well. I mean, I got rid of all my compact fluorescents, and some of the the reds that I do have in my house are the good flickerless LEDs, or if I find the red old school bulbs, I buy those too. But those seem to just blow pretty quickly.
Yeah, my friend Andrew Latour of Gemba Red, he's super science guy, so he writes all these blog posts and makes YouTube videos on like the science of light. And he recently kind of blew my mind because all the bulbs here in my house currently are incandescent
Hmm.
and red and orange. But he was showing that the flicker on those is a lot more. Like I think 7% he tested versus LED is like 1%. If it's the right brand, like I think Sunlight, LITE, something is a good one.
Basically, I think if the LED says it's non-dimmable, then those are no good because
Mm,
they need to have a certain flickerlessness, if that's even a word, to be able to be dimmable. Even though I don't have dimmer switches,
mm,
but I didn't know that the old school ones had a bit of flicker too. But that's the one I was drawn to, were the sunlights,
mm.
and I always found they were great. They're nice and full, and they don't bother. I mean, my eyes are the ultimate test.
Yeah.
If I just feel like crap under them, like something's up with this light, then get rid of it. But I know there's that trick too, where you film it in slow mo and see if it flickers. But I mean, it just depends on the flicker rate. It might not pick that one up. But
Yeah.
um,
We don't
yeah,
need to,
red light.
we can just use
Uh,
you, canary in the coal mine.
yeah, yeah. I'll just come over to your house and say yay or nay.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying red
No,
light.
no, it's all right. We're just talking about flickering lights. But yeah, lights. Light. It was a big part of my health journey too, and like I said, learning about light through Lieberman and like early on. I mean, I was uh, learned about some of that stuff through Cruise as well. But since then, there's some pretty interesting books on color therapy and light therapy, and that can actually help too with elements of trauma as well, exposing the body to certain colors as well to help fill this. And there's certain like color deficiencies, so you just ingest this color, and it balances things out. I have this great talk on my by Dr. Angela Peddle. She's my optometrist who I met through Dr. Deutsch, and she's has some really interesting data on a lot of certain color wavelengths to help again balance out certain brain issues, certain learning issues, and even certain stuck trauma issues as well. And yeah, it's really interesting.
That makes sense. Adam Bergstrom, he has something called color recycling, and I think it's just a YouTube video on his website, like less than a minute, and it cycles through these colors. And I guess the theory, or I guess it's been proven, I don't know, that whenever you have a trauma, there's always a color associated with it, and so you
Yeah.
kind of use a color to kind of move through that. It's just kind of what you were just saying.
Right, and there's this exercise that I know Dr. Jacob Lieberman kind of goes through when he works. He's worked with me in the past, and I think he ended up writing about it in his newer book called, which is a really interesting book. It's called This Luminous Life, and he basically takes you on this train journey where he says we're going to jump on this train, and then we're going to go through these stops, and it's like, okay, we're marching along on this train, and the first stop is the color red, and then he asks you, how do you feel about stopping at this? You want to like stop here for a while, or you want to keep going? Anyway, so he basically goes through all the major colors there, and it's basically the train stop that you don't want to stop at is basically the color that you need to surround yourself with, because there's some type of trauma that's associated with it, and there's this avoidance of this. But once you kind of bring back these colors that you almost don't want to see, it brings the body back into balance. And he's got tons of stories on how people's traumas radically disappeared, and it's really really interesting. So yeah,
That's
I think the syntonic, I think it's kind of called syntonic light therapy. It's been around for quite many years. This type of color light therapy.
Interesting.
So
Have you ever used? You just made me think. Yeah, where you lie under this thing. What's the name of it? I'm trying to think. I used it at a health conference. You lie under it and it flashes lights, and I actually would see sacred geometry. Like it's like an induced DMT trip.
um,
Lucia.
Lucia Light, yes, I used it at the Biohacking Summit in Toronto, I think 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I haven't experimented with it long enough, but I'm sure if it's these patterned, timed light, it ends up being like a frequency, and there's 528 hertz and 432 of those, the sacred solfeggio. So I'm not sure. Maybe it kind of ties into a lot of that. I haven't really seen the data, but a good friend of mine owns one
Hmm.
uh, in Ontario, and he kind of has brought it out to a few conferences and talks. But I really haven't spent too much time with it. But the light is a pretty powerful uh, healer, and so
It's
I'd
an
be curious to
expensive,
see some more data on it. I'm not sure what color spectrum is being shined in the eyes, but yeah, not sure.
it's an expensive way to do it versus just a YouTube video or something.
Yeah, yeah, the unit's pretty expensive.
You made me think. Adams talked about different colors being. His whole thing is colors and stuff, but gray is like a birth control color. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Like, if you wear gray clothes, then it's harder to conceive. And I think
Hmm.
the opposite of that is like pink or something. Yeah.
Well, there's a very interesting documentary and book correlated with Dr. John Ott, Health and Light. There's a his film called Exploring the Spectrum. I don't know if you've seen it before,
I think I have. Yeah. Hmm.
but he used certain color lamps to make certain flowers grow and reproduce and flower and die. And then he used these colors on mice and children and showed some pretty interesting results there as well. So it'd be actually very interesting to do if maybe somebody were to like update that film and either re-experiment, because it's a bit dated and it's a bit slow. It's just an old film, but I mean the information seemed pretty cool in there, but the power of color and light.
I think I did see that when it was like a 60s or 70s. It was pretty
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
Uh, have you ever seen the one where that Japanese woman, I can't remember the name, she hooks up a frequency device to plants and she like translates the plants what their beeps into actual language somehow. I don't know.
No, no,
The
no,
secret language
no.
of plants. That's what it's called. Yeah,
I've heard of it. I hadn't seen it though. I hadn't. That sounds pretty interesting. I
yeah.
hadn't heard of that one.
It was a trip. She was literally talking to a cactus, like having a conversation.
Oh wow. And it's everything speaks a language, and our English language and our ears are pretty limited. Our eyes and our ears only see such a narrow band of the spectrum, and it's there's a lot going on that we can't see and can't hear. And often what I do say is, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So you know
Yeah, good point. Another thing I wanted to ask you is the Irlen Institute. I think her name is Helen Irlen. I think I found out about her through Dave Asprey years ago, and I did find someone to go to their house, and they basically use uh, their consultation is like they'll have you read sentences, and then they'll use different colored see through little papers that you read through. And I think my color was purple, and you know my coherency, just a lot of people like skip words or skip entire sentences when they read. And according to
hmm
this woman that created this technique, um, maybe it's related to what we're talking about with the traumas. I don't know, but the idea is they're kind of expensive. I think it ends up being like $400 or $500, but you get these tailored colored lenses for your brain based upon these consultations that you do with these practitioners. Have you ever heard of that? Or
I have, yes. Back when I was starting Aerosmith school, I was really looking into it to try to get to the bottom of my learning disabilities and things like that. So I never actually got tested for it, but it's basically your eyes can absorb information better if it's filtered through the color that resonates with the individual. So I mean, it's interesting. Whatever helps the person learn, and I do see its validity, but maybe she might not have the full picture, and maybe somebody, to give credence to what Adam Bergstrom was talking about, and and what with these color deficiencies that are associated with trauma. So maybe if if you were given these colors that you quote unquote don't like, then it can eventually balance. I think a lot of learning dysfunctions can in fact be fixed, and I think it's the Irlen stuff is a type of color learning dysfunction that might be fixable, unless there's something to the effect of what would you call that? People who are like colorblind. I mean, it's kind of complicated, but I haven't. I first investigated it a while back, but since then I never followed up too much on it. I kind of went past it a bit. But yeah, it was on my list of things that were pretty interesting. So
That's a good point you made. I never thought about it that way. Like, you know how with minerals and vitamins, there's like a seesaw of like, magnesium and calcium, and then you have like iron and copper, and sodium and potassium. Colors, like I grew up sculpting and painting a little bit. There's like complementary colors.
hmm
And I know the colors will balance each other. So maybe the basic idea with their stuff, I don't know, is that you, the color that balances your trauma out, just like vitamins and minerals are connected. I don't know.
yeah, and I think the Erland stuff might just be compensating for your imbalance, and if you know kind of give yourself that color that you need, that color deficiency that you're suffering from, things the body balances out and you fall into place. And like I said, Lieberman talked a lot about balancing a lot of learning issues that he had with balancing the color and trauma, and trauma is often associated with learning difficulties because your brain is focusing its energy on other things. And if the brain's too traumatized unconsciously, you're not going to worry about a math problem when you're running from the proverbial tiger or an abusive parent. So, yeah.
That explains why it was so hard for me to teach math to kids at a juvenile hall facility because their focus was somewhere else. I'm like, no, look at the paper. I try
Yeah,
to make it
yeah,
fun, but
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's understandable, and then you're like trying to get through to them, but they're just somewhere else, and it's unfortunate. It's not their, it's not really their fault, but a lot more going on, I think.
yeah. Um, Last thing that came to mind with this discussion, have you messed with different color blue blockers? Because I think when I got into it, I started with the Uvex orange Skypers for like
hmm
$8 or $9. And then I learned there's like, pink lenses and yellow lenses and red lenses. And all four of those, pink, yellow, orange, and red, have different applications, right? As far as mitigating artificial light and the damage that it causes. Like pink and yellow are more daytime, and then orange and red would be more nighttime. Have you looked into that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, most definitely I have. I really haven't heard of the pink lenses before, but yellow again. Yes, it's more of a daytime, not blocking more of the full spectrum that's kind of needed to keep you awake. Um, I know there's some relatively clear blue blockers which eliminate some of the blue. I mean, I haven't tested them with a spectrometer, and there was a couple of different companies that I've been experimenting with as well. So, but pink, I haven't messed with. Was a little bit afraid of pink things because again, watching that Dr. John Ott um, documentary, when these mice were exposed to the pink light over a longer period of time, they ended up developing like tumors and things like that, which again, I don't know. I haven't experimented long enough. I was a bit afraid to. But if I was blocking blue light during the day, I was using, yellow. And yellow is also used at night too to help, if you use like night driving glasses, they're usually this yellow. So I think it helps block some of the blue light so you can kind of see headlights better and things at night too. But, I've usually been using the relatively clear or yellow ones during the day under shitty light, and the orange or reds. But my house is pretty, I have the bulbs, and it's just for when I'm, not at home or, uh, elsewhere where I'm uh, blocking. And I think a big part of that, which not a lot of people talk about beyond the color temperature, of the blue light, is actually the intensity of the light. So it's important that, I mean, you could be blocking all the blue you want, but if this light is still super duper bright, and if you're not wearing a hat, and it's like these bright lights are just on your head, I mean, I still think that can have an effect on melatonin and things like that too.
So there's three
So
three things like color, temperature, and Kelvin, intensity, and flicker. What do you say? I mean,
well, yeah, flicker, yeah, and the blue too. So you don't. I know the work of Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's a big eye brain guy. He's really interesting. He was on Rogan and Lex Friedman's podcast as well. He talks a lot about, everyone's so crazed about, blocking blue light, but he goes like what's because the eyes don't like it at night from above and in intensity. So he says that's actually a big factor as well.
what's his name?
eh, Dr. Huberman, Huberman, Andrew Huberman.
I'll listen to him.
Yeah, he's been making the rounds as well, and he's pretty interesting. His talk on Rogan was pretty cool. I mean, there's like a 15-minute thing where he talks about the advancements in healing the eyes too. So I'm in the process of chatting with him, but interesting fellow.
That's cool. Yeah, I utilize these little fake oh candles, the wax LED candles, and I mean they're so dim, but at night, I mean they'll light up,
Hmm.
a bathroom or whatever. So I kind of use a combination of these and like LED little red strip lights. I find, but I guess it's finding the right combo, and uh, yeah, sometimes it's hard to see. So I know there's like a compromise if you live with other people. I'm just here by myself, so I can just make it super dim.
Yeah, you end up memorizing your house. I mean, me being night blind for a long time, I've memorized my house in the dark. So, you know, and I just have my red lights. I have like a night mode for my house.
Cool.
So red lights everywhere.
That's
My neighbors must think I'm running some kind of
awesome. Operation.
some sort of strange business in here, but I think they're used to me by now.
This is a wild question from my friend Dio. I don't know if you've ever heard of this related to sun gazing. Have you ever heard of burning intentionally the cone in your eye with the sun to reap the most benefits from sun gazing? I guess he said now burning the, I don't know where this is from, but burning the cone permanently. Now he can see more colors. He looks at white. He says he sees all the colors. I don't.
I know, never. I've never heard of that. Like intentionally, like burning your eyes with the sun.
Yeah,
I Yeah, no, I haven't heard of that, and I don't know what would be involved, or how painful or how close you'd have to do that. So yeah, no, I haven't heard of that before. No.
doesn't sound good. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of context too with like your nutrition.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't sound good, but I don't know how much abuse the eyes can take. But I don't know how much more colors I mean, like unless you're like colorblind, and yeah, no, I have not heard of that.
Well,
Well,
go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say, like back in the day when I was experimenting with getting more UV and I was using sunbeds. There was times like, oh, UV is good. I'm just trying, like I was trying to beat my cataract, and I remember just trying to experiment with not wearing any protective eyewear and in the tanning bed, and then after once where I think I, took too much, I ended up going home and looking in the mirror and like, oh my god, my eyes looked a bit different, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I had to be careful." I was like, "Maybe I overdid it," but they ended up going back to what they did, but there was this weird kind of like glaze over them for like a day or two. So I don't know exactly what I did, but you know, I wasn't you know, but my eyes are okay now. I mean, in terms of that respect, but you gotta be careful.
Yeah, UV is no joke. I just set up like a Sun Dream. It's like a vertical tanning thing, and I custom put some bulbs in there, uh, swirl bulbs, UVA, UVB. So it's like half purple, half blue when you look at it. But
Hmm.
the other day I was standing in front of it without the glasses they included, and my eyes were actually sore afterwards, just using it for 10 minutes. And so now I'm just starting to respect ultraviolet light a little more. I mean, it has application, right? But it's very easy to overdose on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can drink water or you can drown in water. So it's the same thing. Actually, my lenses have UV protection from my cataract, so I'm you know I don't know how I felt about that, but it's there, and but I do use protection when I use my Spurdy, or I'm not like looking right at it. And I think the other thing is with those lights, it's just still bits of the spectrum, and there's other bits missing. So it's like looking at a bright LED light where it's just high white and blue. You look at it after a while and it's kind of damaging as opposed to full spectrum light. But again, those are more powerful, so it's there's different power density than looking at natural light.
Mhm. This is an interesting question. Someone asks, uh, "What's the difference with human visual dominance versus other mammals' vestibular dominance?" You know about that?
No, what I don't know. Vestibular dominance, I'm not. No, I don't know. Not really sure.
I guess I just looked it up. Vestibular indicates a right hemisphere dominance. Uh, Human visual dominance. Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe he's referring to the hemispheres of the brain being different. Not sure. Um,
No, I haven't looked into that.
Sounds like a neuroscientist asking that.
Yeah, I'm not a neuroscientist.
How to reverse paranoid schizophrenia? Any ideas? Everything we've been talking about.
uh I don't know. I don't know too much about it. I know if it's a complicated situation, and there's a lot of kind of factors, whether the person's has been medicated or not medicated, or weaning off the medication, and you know addressing the trauma. It's kind of what I would say is, really find someone to work with the trauma, whether it's a somatic therapist. Things could be very old and very stuck, and that could manifest into that schizophrenia. And it's important to work with uh, people, good therapists to help. That's kind of what I would suggest.
Have you heard of PMLD and like the post induction method? Like I guess it's like a form of talk therapy.
What was the first part? PM.
Oh, her name is Pia, like PIA Melody. She's written a lot of books. Like I have one on codependence, uh, but she has a lot of other ones. And there's all these different forms of therapy that someone could do as far as talk therapy, right?
Of course, yeah. There's many forms. Talk therapy. CBT is. Those personally. I don't think do much. Maybe if you have not talked about trauma whatsoever, CBT is pretty light in the sense where like, oh, my problems might be stemming from my parents, and like, to others that might seem pretty obvious, but you'd need to get a bit deeper. And over the years, I've evolved into different modalities of my trauma to get deeper. And like after I felt like I resolved one thing, I used another mode to kind of get to the bottom of other things. And you know when the trauma is feels safe enough to come out, it does. So it's really getting into this an environment to allow that to happen. And it's not easy work. It really isn't. But it's if you find good people to work with, it's very beneficial. And it's unfortunately it's a bit trial and error if you find the right people to work with. And
Yeah. Speaking of environment, have you found that like nature time, just being outside, helps to facilitate that? Because I'm fortunate to have a creek running through my property, and just going out there and hearing the running water, it it does something very tangible to my brain. Like it's like almost like an instant release of tension.
yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm not sure what your EMF situation is up there, but being in a city, again, there's things we can't see, and then there's things we can't hear. But these things are, you pick up an EMF meter and you see what you're sitting in, versus these ancient sounds that have been around our ancestors for a long time. Birds chirping, trees swaying, and river running. And of course, those are very, very calming and very beneficial. I mean, how many those meditation CDs do you have, or have you heard, with just like running water? I mean, it sounds good, and it's very beneficial. So yeah, for sure. The environment. A lot of things, stem from a disconnection to nature. It's good on you for moving where you did, and something that I'd like to do at some point.
Yeah, unfortunately, I lost human contact, so that's the trade off. I guess it's worth it, but I I didn't know anyone moving here, so.
Yeah, I spent a couple months up at my cottage in the summer, and I was there by myself and not too many people around. So it was great in some ways, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is pretty. I'm pretty by myself out here." So um, yeah,
Yeah, so
but
it's like Matt Damon in that movie The Martian, just like it feels like I'm on another planet, which is kind of fun as a biohacker. It's like, oh, how can I mitigate elevated serotonin from isolation, which happens? And it's like certain things. So
hmm mm. Oh wow, yeah, it's interesting, and I definitely, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's interesting spending a lot of time alone too. You really learn a lot about yourself. It's sometimes not easy, and it's you go through stuff, but if you can really harness that, it can be pretty powerful healing. And at the same time, we need human connection, and finding the right human connection isn't easy these days, but it's possible as well. So
yeah, this
yeah.
community has been really cool. Just metabolic health and biohacking. There's a lot of awesome people that they're more emotionally, psychologically healthy because they're taking care of their body, and they're into like you know self self development and stuff. So um, I- I'm really thankful for social media and the internet for that respect. Even though it has all its downfalls.
Yeah, it's a tool. I mean, you can use it in good ways and bad ways, and I'm blessed for it too. And I've met so many amazing people over Instagram uh, and these other platforms, and obviously met some strange people as well. But it's just a part of it. But I'm blessed for the amazing people that I've met, and it's been a game changer for my healing and learning what other people are doing, and experimenting. Learned a lot from you too.
Oh,
So yeah,
well, I appreciate your work. Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah.
Kind of random question here. I was wondering if you've messed with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy or frequency, Tesla, Royal Rife stuff.
I have a bit. I don't own any units, and I was instructed by a few people to get a certain unit. And in my documentary, I interviewed Professor Magda Havis, who's an expert with PEMF, and we did this live blood analysis uh, before and after being on a PEMF machine, and half an hour on this. It's called the Sequex machine. It's about like a $6,000 PEMF unit from Italy. I think only like 6 or 7 were made, and I mean, from the live blood analysis, the before and after was a night and day difference. I'm not sure what I'm quite sensitive to EMF things, and I can see and understand that there's certain PMF that can be resonant and ones that aren't. Um, I don't know that much about it, but from what the things that I've used, I've and a few other people that talk about it, I've heard that it is beneficial, and I don't have any units. It's something that if I had more disposable income, I'd probably invest in something because they can get a bit expensive. But yeah, I don't know much beyond that. So what about yourself? Have you?
Well, yeah, years ago, I think there were a few conferences I went to. I think the last one was Bulletproof, like 3 or 4 years ago. And they say, "Oh, take your cell phone and wallet out of your pocket because it could wipe them, right? Your
Oh
credit
yeah,
card."
right. Wow, right.
And I lay down on this mat, and I just got like a 4 or 5 minute treatment just on my, hitting my torso, so all my organs, and I felt like I had slept. I was kind of under slept as you usually are at health conferences, just go, go, go. And I was like, oh, that was amazing. How much does this thing cost? And they're like, $30,000.
I'll take two. Yeah, it's like it's that's if you can afford it, or if you have a clinic that's close to you. I mean, great. I mean, I don't see how any can, and it's not practical,
Yeah.
but I'd love to have a unit. I've heard some people saying like it'd be very beneficial for my eyes, and I can't afford one, but I'd like to experience it, and I've heard it helps. Like what you said, I've heard it really helps people sleep.
Mhm.
So because there's certain types of settings that can help induce that, and yeah, I mean, it'd be great. If I had
So,
more money, perhaps I will invest in one.
well, up in Canada, I don't know if you've heard of SOTA, Russ Torlage. They've been around for decades. I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years at least. And they have the most affordable one and the strongest, but it's a paddle. So it's just like a lollipop thing. And I think it's like $350 US. But I always
Hmm.
point people to that because I have one just in my first aid cabinet, my biohacking first aid cabinet.
Hmm.
It's just cool to hold that up to your mouth and you can, hit any infections in your teeth. And
Hmm.
uh,
I which one's that one you have?
it's called a magnetic pulsar from
Okay.
SOTA. Yes, stands for state of the art. And yeah, they just seem like they want to help people. So they have affordable, strong machines. They have like a water ozonator and, a little micropulsar for the blood and cool stuff.
Mm, mm,
I like
mm,
their
mm.
biotuner. It's like 111 hertz and harmonics of that. I actually used it this morning on my earlobes, and you just do 20 minutes. It's just a little 9 volt, and it's like brain.
111 hertz. Interesting. That's what they found in. That's the frequency that they found in that chamber in Malta, the hypogeum. There's this like ancient chamber that they found, and there's one room that runs at 111 hertz that they found, which pretty interesting. So I've been interested in that frequency. So
That's cool. Yeah, I just started messing with. I mean, we're jumping all over right now, but whatever. I just started experimenting with a Brown's gas hydrogen machine. George Wiseman. I
yeah,
learned this from like Justin, my friend at Extreme Health Radio, and he's just raving about it, and I trust his judgment. So I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll try it. And what's cool is they built in frequency, so you can actually it's set at like 432 hertz, but it bubbles the Brown's gas, which I think is HHO, and molecular hydrogen into water, and then you can breathe it at the same time. I was doing that last night, so you can like make the water and breathe it at the same time. And supposedly that it's the smallest, call it atom or compound in the universe, that hydrogen.
I think I asked you about that like maybe about a year ago, because another friend of mine was recommending it. Two other friends of mine were recommending it for me again for eye issues as well, and it's like curing things that that have been stuck around for a while. So it's been on my list as well to try out. So I'd be curious to see how you feel with it. But I've heard people not even needing glasses after using the Brown's gas after a while as well too. So yeah, I'd like to try it out.
That's cool. Yeah, I have a little hydrogen generator here at my desk I use with
Oh yeah, the nose piece. Yeah.
And yeah, it seems like things like when you combine niacinamide and hydrogen, if you want, I mean, this Brown's gas that I think called hydroxy something, that you can, I mean, if you neutralize inflammation, then that could start the healing process, right? But just lowering that inflammation
and that
itself.
And that's the sign of any itis is inflammation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what mine is, retinitis pigmentosa.
Have you messed with systemic enzyme therapy, like high dosing, like nattokinase or serapeptase?
No, I really want to. I know you have a product, and it's been on my list to try, and I haven't. I've been wanting to mess with Shilajit, and I haven't started that either. And I know you have been talking about that for a while, and it's something that's been on my list. So I'm gonna have to order. I don't know if you make any recommendations that you think that I should work with. I'd most definitely like to give that a try.
Yeah,
So I saw some, you posted something where somebody said some really good results with those enzymes. So
it's
very curious about it.
Yeah, I'll send you some for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That'd be great. Be be very interested in that, and anything you'd recommend as well. So
Sometimes I sound like a broken record, like on Joe Rogan. There's that meme, like, yes, have you ever done DMT? I'm probably like, have you ever used systemic enzyme therapy? Because I asked everyone that.
well, and I'd like I said, like to try it. And I'm not opposed to trying anything. And if you recommend it, for sure, I'd most definitely trust your opinion and judgment on that. So I'll give it a try. And there's a lot of things I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm still on my health journey, and there's still things I'm working on with myself too. So
Yeah, the way I see it, we all have a different piece, right? And you have a piece that I'm missing, and vice versa. And when we all come together, we could actually make some progress.
yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm sharing my message, and that's why you're sharing yours. So, and that's why we're talking together here.
I love it. Well, I'll put the link below to your documentary, so that people can purchase it. I think $2 is well worth it to check it out. And I really enjoyed it. It was very captivating. It was really, really well done and professional. So great
Thank
job.
you. I'm hoping to eventually make another one, but yeah, it's available on iTunes and Prime, and yeah, and let me know what you guys think, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to me over Instagram. I'm pretty active there, and at Blind Biohacker.
Right on. Yeah, when you come out with the documentary, let's have you back.
Yeah, and I'm going to be putting together the Vision Optimization Summit. We have visionoptimizationsummit.com, and it's going to be a bunch of the top people talking about reversing vision loss and healing the eyes as well. So that's coming out in the new year. So if you want, go to the landing page and sign up for it, and it's going to be released soon. We have some great guests.
Cool. So like the start of January.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see a release for it soon. I'm just getting together my last few talks, and then gonna pick a date. It's been a pretty topsy-turvy year, so things weren't moving as fast as I wanted to, but things happen when they happen. So yeah, so you'll definitely hear about it.
Right on. Well, thanks, Victor. Yeah, this was really, really fun, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and looking forward to the next time. That'd be great to speak again in the future. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Right on. All right, well, stick around as I close out the show.
All right.
Wasn't that a lot of fun? I love Victor, and all of his book recommendations are incredible. And I love that he loves light, like myself. Light is so cool. It does so much, and I think it's underrated. It's misunderstood. People think that ultraviolet UV light is just for hormone D production, but it's a vasodilator. It increases beta endorphin. It's antiviral, especially when used in combination with photosensitizers like methylene blue. I have a product on my website there on recommended products, Just Blue. I'm a huge fan of that one for a lot of things. It's an electron donor. If you feel fatigue, if you have neurological problems, I get a lot of messages about ADD symptoms. You know, they're looking for an alternative to Adderall. I'd say methylene blue. It's really awesome for that, for attention, for focus, for brain power. Really cool substance. I'm excited to check out that documentary that he mentioned called Exploring the Spectrum by John Ott. I may have seen it before. I've seen a couple old school documentaries about light. Those tend to be the best. The old documentaries are generally better than the newer ones. Of course, unless Victor's making it, then it's going to be awesome. But I think Victor gave you a lot of really practical things that you can implement, whether it's for trauma or eye health. There's a lot of tools available to us, and we just have to implement them. All it takes is a little bit of discipline. And when you start to see results, which can be fairly quickly, that is kind of a push to keep going. It's kind of an inspiration to keep going with the consistent use. And me being 10 years into health, what I've found is that it's just muscle memory. It's intuition, but it's also just to stay on track. I just know, because I know how I'll feel if I don't do certain things. And so creating, a program that works for you, that's individualized to some degree, is really important. My kind of lifestyle tends to be very brain focused, which is why I love talking to my friend Victor here, and also anti-aging, which those go hand in hand. And once again, you're listening to an alternative health podcast. I'm not an alternative health podcast. That is simple. It's basic. This goes a little bit further. And I'm always welcome to being wrong. I used to be in the omega-3 business. A lot of people know my story there. And I renounced that life. I renounced that substance. And now I talk about how vitamin E, especially mixed tocopherol formula, counteracts that. And I truly believe that food is not enough. When you look at how severe the lipofuscin is, the iron overload, we need some big guns, and we definitely need some extracts. So I kind of like to use a mix of natural and, extracted substances to get the job done. So check out Victor on Instagram. His account is just blind biohacker. I'll put a link below. Also put a link below to his documentary called My Neuroplastic Adventure. You can buy it for $2. Definitely worth the watch. And it's felt kind of like a meditation. It was super relaxing the way it was shot. And he said he might be making some more in the future. And so I would love that. And he said it would be even better. And don't underestimate the power of light. I was really shocked when he said 30 seconds a day of red light is all you need for the eye benefit. And I believe it's near infrared. Maybe it's mid as well. But from what I've seen, I believe it's the near and the mid infrared light that has most of the benefit, not necessarily the visible red. But I guess Victor said 670, I think was what he saw. So it might be both. So it can't hurt to use, a dual device. A lot of them now have multiple wavelengths in it. And I like Gemba Red, I like Electromagnetic Revolution, and I would say just if you're, around the world, find one that you could afford, and that's not an arm and a leg to ship it to you, because sometimes the shipping on these things can get crazy depending on where you live. So that's it. Victor's an awesome individual. Definitely check him out. Check out all of his posts, and I'll put the link below to the Vision Optimization Summit if you want to sign up for that or check that out. And thanks for supporting the show and sharing this with your friends. Really appreciate it. I'm really happy with how much it's growing. And if you go to matt-blackburn.com, I'm always updating it. And recently I added Satchery. My friend Kitty and Emma have this company, Kitty Blomfield. A+ liver capsules. It's actually freeze-dried liver capsules, not desiccated. They have really good collagen and gelatin and Cascara sagrada. And so if you go to their website, you get 5% off if you use the code Blackburn on any of their products. But I'm really impressed. Their collagen is the smoothest I've ever seen. Usually it's grainy. Theirs is like powder. The consistency is just incredible. I also want to shout out my friends over at Jarjoy Goods. If you go under the J section on my products, you'll see a daily tote jar. This thing's amazing. Sometimes I'll give out raw milk or different things. Or if I'm going to be on the road for a while, which is rare nowadays, but it's a great way to store your mason jars and keep things separated. Or if you're going to go, on a little hike or a picnic or whatever. Really cool, really small company. And if you order through the website, I get a little kickback, and it helps out Chris's family, which they're amazing people. Then the other thing I added today is the Neurophone. I went back and forth with this over the years, but it's one of those things that I just keep coming back to because it works. It's amazing for travel. It's amazing if I'm doing computer work. I could just throw it on and not think about it. And in the book by Gerald Pollack, where he talks about the fourth phase of water, he says there's different ways to do it. You can do it with infrared light, red light, or ultrasound. And a lot of people have never heard about that. So ultrasound, people think is harmful, right? If a woman goes and gets an ultrasound. There might be some specifics, but it's my understanding it's beneficial. Ultrasound can increase blood flow up to 300%. And supposedly this device synchronizes your brain hemispheres, increases coordination. What I've found is that if I'm underslept, it just feels very soothing on my brain. And there's been multiple times, I think we've all been underslept, but especially when I was working 3 jobs and just going go nonstop. It was really nice to use this to wind down, or just midday if I need to, come back to balance and lower my stress at a brain level. So that's pretty cool. I think it's fairly affordable, and it is the best version of this thing. The inventor of this actually passed away, but there have been multiple versions. The one I have on my website is my favorite. It sounds kind of like ocean waves if you turn it up really high, like that kind of like crashing ocean waves, but constant. This device is not well known. I've found a lot of stuff over the years that a lot of people don't know about, but it actually works. So very happy to have access to these technologies because I feel like they can be extremely useful. Some of the more out there purported effects of this device includes listening to, through the input jack, either music or subliminals. Usually people will do subliminals, and I would just make sure you know what's going into it, to actually deliver that through the tissue, which supposedly goes deeper into the brain versus if you use just your ears. You're actually delivering the sound through ultrasound, which is pretty advanced. And it's actually how dolphins hear, is through the saccule. It's a part of their brain that detects ultrasound. And we have pretty much the same thing, according to the scientist Martin Lenhart, 1991, that discovered that. And then the craziest part is if you get two transducers, which it comes with, you can use it at the same time with another person, and it's supposed to open up, basically nonverbal communication with each other, which is fascinating. I've only done that a few times, but it's kind of fun to do with your partner or whatever. So that's it. Mitolife updates. Pretty much every product's out of stock except for NAD Power and PUFA Protect. My apologies. This year's just been crazy. You guys know, I think, at a world level and a personal level, it seems like it's just insane right now. And everything's slower. So the distribution of goods and truck routes and UPS and USPS and all that, it's all slower, as well as production for products. So I'm working my butt off to get the products back. Panacea comes in waves, usually 2 batches a week. So just keep your eye out on my Instagram or on the website, mitolife.co, for that one. But the oysters should be back next week. I'm crossing my fingers. I don't want to make promises, but pretty sure the oyster extract will be back next week. That's a source of copper, zinc, selenium, iodine, all natural, all natural ratios and forms. And then as far as purely K and Dissolvedol, those should be the next 1 or 2 weeks, but I feel like things will slow down next week with Christmas. So we'll have to see. But I'll keep you guys updated. Just follow my Instagram. I always announce stuff there. And I do my best to also send out a newsletter to the Mitolife subscribers. You could sign up on the website. Today's quote is by Jacob Lieberman from his book Light, Medicine of the Future. Dr. Max Luscher investigated the subject of color preference deeply. He found that a person's specific preference for one color and dislike for another color had a definite meaning, reflecting either an existing state of mind, a glandular balance, or both. Luscher believed that people's reactions to one color are part of their unique and ancient primal memory, information coming from deep within their center. The work of Hill and Marg in 1963 partially demonstrated and verified this hypothesis. Using lights of several different colors, they repeatedly stimulated a specific portion of a rabbit's brain that was an integral part of the pathway involved in the transmission of light information from the eye to the pineal gland. They found that the rabbit responded differently to each one of the different colors. With the development of more sophisticated diagnostic techniques, science and medicine are continuing to find that certain brain regions are not only light sensitive, but actually respond differently to different wavelengths. It is now believed that different colors, wavelengths of radiation, interact differently with the endocrine system to stimulate or inhibit hormonal production.